welcome to another episode of PTR Perspective, where we are conducting expert interviews, discussions at the Green Auto Summit in Stuttgart, Germany. And my next guest is Mr. Stefano Terranova, who is the CEO of Atlante. Welcome to PTR Perspective.
Thank you, Saqib. Very nice to be here. Thank you to your viewers.
It's nice to have you at our podcast. Why don't you start off with a quick introduction about yourself and most importantly about Atlante?
Sure. 4 years ago, I started thinking about what to do next in terms of energy transition. I've been involved in the energy transition and the decarbonization, trying to do everything I could in the decarbonization. Previously, with my previous job, mainly in power generation, then with energy storage. And then approximately 3.5 years ago, this opportunity came about of setting up a new company, starting a business from scratch within NOAA, the company I work for. And the new company was Atlante. It was a project to electrify 4 countries with fast and ultra-fast charging stations in order to not only accompany, but also to fast track the adoption of zero emission driving in Southern Europe. Mm-hmm. So that's it. We started 3 years ago. We recently accomplished 3 years of life in Atlante. So very young, but fully operational in the 4 countries that we choose as initial perimeter. We have almost 3,000 points of charge in operation in the 4 countries and many more under construction. By the end of next year, we should get to our target of 5,000 POCs online.
Amazing. First question, elephant in the room, Stefano. We heard in some of the presentation, and I saw the first section of your presentation as well. I think you addressed the exact same question. 2024 for e-mobility market for Europe and overall, including North America as well, has not been a great year. And what you presented in the following up slides, it was very amazing to see that where the trend right now is and what should we expect in the coming years. Could you please essentially give us a synopsis or crux of what you presented this morning?
Sure, absolutely, yes. For sure, 2024 has been the first very disappointing year for the EV industry. It's a tough year. It's not over yet, by the way. and we all had our struggles in our still nascent industry. The most evident KPI of this temporary slowdown is the BEV sales, the sales of electrical vehicles, especially in Europe, especially in Germany. Since we're in Germany, we see a significant drop. And in the US, I don't cover the US, but of course we know about the market as well. However, we should not forget that, first of all, Europe is a tale of many countries. So not all of the countries have seen a slowdown. And not all of the countries are in the same stage of the adoption curve. What we can see is that on the other side of the planet, in China, the EV revolution is going ahead just as strongly.
Full swing.
I think this is there was a necessary trough of, especially after a peak of excitement in the previous couple of years. I think it's necessary to reset the expectation only temporarily and then prepare for next year when I'm pretty sure we will see a rebound in BEV sales in Europe. And we just need to gear up and hold on tight for the ride. And
with regards to the utilization rates, that's a big topic. Utilization of EV chargers, because that's what defines the business case, and it has been slowly going up. What's your take on it? What is how does it define the overall e-mobility industry, the utilization rate, which is starting to creep into 15, 16, 20% in some countries, slowly going up. So what's your take on this?
Sure. This again, it's a very relative concept, which is completely different country by country in Europe. In order to have decent utilization rates in the double-digit sphere, you need to have had consistently over a few years in a row above 15-20% BEV penetration rates. So sales of BEV exceeding 15 or even 20% of the car registrations per year on a number of years in a row. Below the threshold, it's simply not possible to boost utilization rates because CPOs like ourselves and all the others are installing faster than the car park is increasing. So in reality, in many places, we see the utilization rates staying stable or even slightly decreasing. No? Then we have, as CPOs, we adopt lots of strategies to make sure that we maintain at least stable utilization rates, but to see an important growth in utilization rates, to see important volumes that start making sense for the industry, we simply need more devs on the road.
Right. And Stefano, if I was to ask you about three key technological trends that you think are going to shape the e-mobility industry in the next 5 to 10 years, what would be your top 3 picks when it comes to technology?
Sure. The first one I would mention pertains to the way that customers connect with the charging stations, interact with the charging stations, and eventually they get access to charging services. Right now, we see that any EV driver has to have on the telephone a plethora of apps to make sure they can charge at any station. Sometimes they have half a dozen of RFID cards in their wallets. Very often, credit cards don't always work on. Sometimes they're not even present at the station. So there is too much confusion between the CPO and the final user. That needs to be simplified. We, as CPOs, the EMSPs, something has to consolidate and get better at that. We have to, especially as CPOs, we need to be more safe in the relationship that we establish with the customer. The customer comes to our station, and very often the complaints we get are not pertaining to our business. Maybe the app they're using is not working, or maybe the RFID card they're using is not properly functioning. So a number of problems which, let's say, pile up on and let's say add on to the many issues that we are facing as CPOs. So first thing is that consolidating and improving the way we interact with the charging infrastructure. Second trend, in my opinion, is improving the efficiency of the hardware, the charging hardware. I'm talking about fast charging, fast, ultra fast, DC charging. Right now, as you know, we mostly install standalone AC/DC chargers. Very easy to install, great, consistent experience throughout European countries. That's great, but they're not very efficient in terms of serving a vast number of customers. So we need to see more centralized solutions. So with the centralized power units and dispenser, with more intelligence on how the power is distributed to the different users, because not all users need the same amount of power, and therefore we can visualize and make much more efficient the way we distribute power at the charging station. So that's the second trend. The third trend is our favorite, is the fact that we will see a big step up in the deployment of storage at our charging station. As Atlante, we have a plan for 2025 to see some consistent numbers, some important numbers of stations with being enabled by storage, which will help us, first of all, time to market. We don't have to wait 18 or sometimes even more for medium voltage connection. We can go with a low voltage connection and local storage. Other times, it's just a boost of the medium voltage connection to provide additional fast charging. And then finally, of course, that's setting the basis for our energy management strategy, which in the future will provide additional value for customers.
Perfect. So I'll summarize this for our viewers and listeners. So first, in your mind, the key trend is going to be how customers interact with the infrastructure.
Correct.
That's going to be first. Second is really optimizing the way we are utilizing, charging infrastructure, so improving the efficiency. And the third one was storage.
For storage.
Okay. So to relieve the stress on the grid, maybe. So because that's going to lead me to the next question as well. And you see this use case, Stefano, storage coupled with charging infrastructure. You see this as a solution?
Yes, we are already using it in our 4 countries. I know that in the Nordic countries already there are players that can only work with storage due to the constraints of the grid, because of course, as you can imagine, in Scandinavia, they are much further ahead in terms of electrification. And so we see a clear trend, and we in Atlante we already have stations that are enabled by storage.
And it's from a solution point of view, it's something which is integrated inside the charger, or is it coupled externally?
We have looked at solutions in the past where the storage was integrated inside the charger, but that's, again, it's not very efficient because you're basically creating a very big charger with a little bit of storage.
Right.
We believe it's more efficient to centralize storage in a standalone situation and then have even better centralized AC/DC power units and just dispenser to serve the customers.
Right. And again, this leads me to the next question about grid integration. Power grid is typically described as one of the most underrated aspects of this whole e-mobility ecosystem. It is considered as something which can either really drive it fast or can become a roadblock as well.
Sure.
How do you see this, and what kind of problems do you see arising because of lack of availability of grid capacity, for example, lack of infrastructure on the grid side? How do you see this?
Yes, the EV industry has put the spotlight on distribution companies, on the distribution business. And before, it was just something that was extremely necessary and valuable, and but nobody knew about distribution companies. Nobody would talk about it outside the very specialized sector, right? Nowadays, we have put a spotlight on them, and we request them to do more investments on their networks to make sure they can continue to meet the demands, the ever-increasing demands of fast charging or charging in general, EV charging in general. But this is positive for them. These distribution companies run regulated businesses in Europe.
Right.
So any additional investment is an opportunity for them to grow the business base, to expand the business. So, and that's what they like to do. They have great expertise in doing that. In Europe, we have very, very sophisticated distribution networks. So there is no problem from the technical perspective, financial perspective. Of course, execution is complex, especially in urban environments. Let's not forget, Europe is not so easy to dig up and lay big cables. So there are some physical challenges, but overall, distribution companies will have to do their part. On the other hand, us, especially CPOs and the EV industry, more generally speaking, have to make our part by being less greedy and more intelligent in what we request and how we use the distribution grid. So I made an example of storage. Atlante, we plan to make a smaller request in terms of power because we will use the storage. That's just an example. Centralizing power units is another example, because in that case, you can use better the same power from the grid and serve more customers.
Maybe a tangent, somewhat related to this question, we talked about storage as a potential solution. In any DC charger setting, having an MV connection, as you said, is always mandatory. Having a transformer is almost always mandatory. And that has been a problem in the last few months or so. Did you also feel the same? And what do you think, where can we do better to not let this become a problem for you?
Fast charging station is an energy asset. It's not just a petrol pump. A petrol pump that is just distributing liquid and getting paid. At the charging station, there are lots of activities taking place. So there is value, part of the value chain takes place at the charging station. The transformation, of course, from medium voltage to low voltage, inverting the power from AC to DC, and then if you have storage, you manage the storage. If you have PV canopies, you manage the PV. So you imagine an energy asset. A station is an energy asset. So rather than saying, yes, of course, CPOs should become more aware. And most of us are, the biggest ones are aware that they are running complex operations. Smaller players probably don't have the technical capabilities to fully optimize the scheme. But it's okay. There's room for everyone, and there's room for consolidation.
Right. Moving on with the trends towards higher and higher power charging. Megawatt charging is being discussed as a potential, saying that's going to be crucial for especially heavy-duty vehicles moving forward. Quick question: do you see that there will be, pure play companies, CPOs for megawatt charging that you expect? Do you think that the existing players will adopt to sort of have more and more ultra fast chargers installed in their networks?
Sure. I'm a little bit in two minds. Of course, there is already an example. Milans is a pure play e-truck CPO created ad hoc by the
Key players,
the key e-truck manufacturers
Yes.
to get it started, to get the music started. For the other CPOs, I see that many of them do not want to venture into that because it's a very complex segment of our business. Requires a deep knowledge of the trucking industry, deep knowledge of the logistics industries. Those are very, very highly specialized industries, and it's not the same at all as charging passenger cars or light duty vehicles. So there are elements to suggest that there should be specialized CPOs. On the other hand, however, having the experience of having done a network for electrical vehicles, passenger electrical vehicles, is an asset. So having gone through the painful experience of creating a network from scratch adds to the quotient. So, for example, in the case of Atlante, we have a pipeline of stations, or rather sites, contracted for the development of e-truck charging stations, but I've not pushed the button on investment yet because it's a chicken and egg situation. Where are the e-trucks? They are not there in sufficient quantities to justify the investments on these stations, which are more expensive than the passengers vehicle charging stations.
Right.
So, in our case, I could see a solution whereby maybe creating joint venture with logistics players, maybe.
I see.
In which case, together we could create a critical mass to make the first few investments, for example.
Interesting. Last question about Atlante. Operating more in the southern part of the region. Do you see any key differences from markets like, say, Germany, UK, even Italy? What are the differences? What are the key challenges that you are solving in the countries that you're operating?
Sure. When we set up Atlante in 2021, we chose those 4 countries, especially for what set them apart from other countries like Germany, UK, or never mind the Netherlands and the Scandinavian countries. And what set them apart was that they were behind the electrification process vis-a-vis the most advanced countries in Europe at the time. So it also made sense, of course, we were based out of Italy, to have a geographical continuum. It helps visualize what we're doing. Having a network that connects 4 countries, it gives really the impression that we are physically given the possibility of traveling around freely, let's say, and at zero emissions. And so that's how we started. Then, of course, each country is very different from the others, even more than what we expected. We knew that each country had its own peculiarities, but along the way we found even more than we expected. First of all, we have two different speeds, very different speeds in our 4 countries. Italy and Spain, below 5% BEV sales registering, so very, very behind the curve in terms of adoption. Portugal and France, above 15%, so at least 3 times, even 4 times as many cars in terms percentage-wise electrical vehicles are sold. So completely different speed, much more advanced. Other important differences: France is a country where it's relatively easy to plan interconnection. They have just one distribution company, and the planning is more centralized and much easier to go about it. Or Portugal, we discovered in 2021.
Also one DSO, right?
Yes.
One distribution operator.
Yes,
in Portugal.
But in Portugal, there is also the big difference is that there's a government-owned entity called Mobi. It's also here the Green Auto Summit, by the way.
We did interview them as well.
And Mobi is a great example of creating a different market setup. They are a must-have integration platform, so every CPO has to go through MOPI, and they also manage all the information and financial flows. And so it's like an aggregator, clearing house. And they had a major role in developing the market, but they created also a big difference because as a CPO, currently I don't sell energy in Portugal. The EMSPs sell the energy. So
Interesting.
very, very important difference compared to the rest of the countries.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Stefano. I hope that all our listeners and viewers got a lot of insights from this discussion. And this concludes our second expert interview at the Green Auto Summit. And I will get you in the next one. Thank you so much.
Thank you.